What's going on, Nittany Nation? Welcome to the Penn State Rivals YouTube channel. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about this matchup, the final regular season game. It's so hard to even imagine that the football season went through this fast. It's the last home game at Beaver Stadium, and that is the Michigan State Spartans traveling to Beaver Stadium to take on the number 11 Penn State Nittany Lions, who didn't move up in the college football playoff rankings. It is what it is. I think they should be over Tennessee, and it's not just because of a Alabama bias you might see back there. But still, I think this is a very interesting matchup to talk about for a couple reasons. Obviously, Michigan State 5-6, really disappointing season so far. But if you really look at their schedule and how things have really played out for them, obviously they start the season off with two pretty easy wins: Western Michigan and Akron. Those should be guaranteed wins for any Big Ten team, honestly. Then they lose to Washington, who was clicking. I mean, they're still really good right now. Washington is a good team. Minnesota, they faced them when they were hot, lost that one 34-7. Faced Maryland, lost not too bad of a game, 27-13. Still, Maryland's a good team. And then, of course, Ohio State 49-20 wasn't as bad as last year. Still pretty bad, though. But then they beat Wisconsin. They lose to Michigan, obviously, 29-7. Beat Illinois, who was ranked at the time, riding in hot. I think, that was one of the teams I was pulling for, Illinois, seeing that they could possibly go to the Big Ten championship. I wanted to see that. And then they beat Rutgers. And then last week, just losing a close heartbreaker to Indiana. Can't lose that one. But still, just with the expectations for Michigan State heading into the season, you lose Kenneth Walker III. Obviously, that was their bread and butter last year, riding him to an historic season for them. Of course, he's doing big things in Seattle Seahawks now. But I was really interested to see how they looked as a team without him. And they definitely are going through some changes. Of course, Mel Tucker got his contract. Really not too sure what to think of it. It's not really looking good day by day. But I think when you look at the recruiting, and it's just going to take some time. And I think last year, you had a magical one special season. Like I said, with, Kenneth Walker, they lost a lot of other guys too. But beginning of this season, they, get hit with some huge injuries. Obviously, one of their best defensive players, Xavier Henderson, safety, out for the season, I want to say, if not, it was a really long time. But they just got hit with a lot of big-time injuries, right? It was either like the first game or like right before the season even started. It was one of those first games. You're talking like two or three key guys that were going out. So they obviously weren't off to the right start. And honestly, haven't really been too high on Peyton Thorne his whole career at Michigan State. I kind of felt like he limited them at times. They had a really good wide receiver core. They have one of my favorite wide receivers still this year. Just accepted his invitation to the Senior Bowl. That's Jaden Reed. I think he's one of the more underrated wide receivers in college football. Guy is a contested catch phenom, runs great routes. I think he's going to be a great pro. I think once he gets out of this Michigan State offense, he's going to have a good career in the NFL. Someone's going to pick him up late, maybe somewhere in the middle rounds, and find a good little steal in the draft. But then Keon Coleman, he's a sophomore for them. He's going to have a good career. Had 107 yards last week against Indiana and a touchdown with a 13.4 average. So they have some good young pieces. Like I said, the recruiting is getting better. They're getting some big guys. So they're all in on Mel Tucker. We'll see if it pays off. Right now, I'm not too sure if it is. But I like the guy. I think he's a great coach. But then you take a look at the off-the-field things. 7 charges have came through as of yesterday. This is Thanksgiving Thursday. Yesterday, 7 charges came through, including Jacoby Windman, one of their best defensive player on the field right now, the key pass rusher. So we just have no clue what's going on with that. But there's just so much going on with the expectations not living up to what they wanted this season. Then you have the tunnel incident with Michigan, and now that's popping back up again days before the game. So it's just really hard to tell what kind of Michigan State team you're getting. But they are 5-6. They need one more win to hit that 6 mark to be bowl eligible. So as much as I want to say they don't have something to play for because of, what the expectations were, and then just how the season's gone and what they're dealing with off the field, there's a lot at stake here. They need this one to become bowl eligible, and Penn State needs this one to really have that shot at a New Year's Six bowl if a couple other things happen. But Penn State fans, you're looking at a 10-2 season. And it really doesn't feel like it with the loss to Michigan and the loss to Ohio State. but it is a loss to Michigan and Ohio State, who are arguably both going to be in the playoffs. That's going to be a great game. Looking forward to that. There's a chance that they both still make the playoffs. You cannot be mad. And, there were some really great moments in both of those games. You get outrun by Michigan terribly, but, there was some that pick six. Sean Clifford's crazy long run. But then against Ohio State, you saw how Penn State was able to run the ball against them, really control the game. Defense showed up great throughout the game. And then, of course, it's just these big backbreaking plays that happened late that really got out of hand for Penn State. So you have to be happy. If they win this one and go 10-2, you have to be happy, whether it is in the Citrus Bowl against Ole Miss in Orlando, Florida, which I would love to go to, by the way. So if that ends up happening, got to go to that one. I love Lane Kiffin too. But still, there is a lot at stake in this game. It's not just a 5-6 Michigan State team and then Penn State, just kind of like a last game. And this is the last dance for Sean Clifford. Speaking of Clifford, this is his last game at Beaver Stadium. Kind of wish I was going to this one because it has that feel good to it. Listen to guys like PJ Musfer, he was talking about, last game at Beaver Stadium, and you saw Sean Clifford put the post up. So it is like an emotional game. So I want to see, Sean Clifford just go out one last time at Beaver Stadium and just put on a show. Parker Washington's out for the season, so you have guys that's going to step up. Wallace is going to come in. You got some young guys. I want to see some more Malik Mega on the field. So someone's going to step up. You still got Mitch Tinsley, that experienced wide receiver out there. And, of course, you got Theo Johnson and Britton Strange at tight end that he loves to go to. And then you just got this dynamic young freshman backfield that's been amazing this season with Kaytron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. And they both rotated starts. It's not like, as much as we want to say Nicholas Singleton is like the guy, he is the next Saquon Barkley. And honestly, I'm not mad at people who have that, comparison, because they really do look a lot alike. And you saw it on that kick return, just really reminded me of Saquon. And once he gets in the open field, he cuts across the middle of the field. He's not just going down the sidelines. He's making people miss, just embarrassing defenders. But you have to just give Kaytron Allen his roses too. It is crazy. As a Virginia boy myself, I love seeing these Virginia guys. He went to IMG Academy down in Florida, which is fine. Just a powerhouse of football, actually coached by a old Washington fullback, Mike Sellers. So it's just really cool to see the ties and stuff. But just seeing how he runs the ball, they complement each other so well. And that's what's so dangerous about this backfield. It's not like you have two running backs that can give you the same thing that you have to prepare for. You are really pretty much changing up how you approach each running back every time they substitute and come on the field. Because Kaytron Allen, he's going to maybe hit that A gap, B gap, and take it upfield for a big gain, when Nicholas Singleton would cut it back to that C gap or even the outside and try to find that open space where he can use the speed to get to the outside. So as a defender, you are changing up your approach every time. Like, do I attack this hole because that's what Kaytron Allen would do? Or this is Nicholas Singleton. I need to get out wide, really make sure that his tackle doesn't really set that edge and get out there. So when you're talking about Michigan State, their defense at times has been good. At times, your offense has been good. It's like when they lose, they just can't click together. But when you really look at just the breakdown of, they score on average 25.4 points per game, but allow 26.7. That's just not the Michigan State defense I'm used to seeing over the last few years. Like I said, they put a lot of guys in the league. I remember that one year they made it to the playoffs, played Alabama. They had Calhoun on the line. Just a dominant defensive lineman until he got stiff armed by Derrick Henry. Sorry about that. But it's just, I'm used to these stout Michigan State defenses that are only giving up, 10, 13, 14 points a game. And their offense, kind of like Michigan, would just run the ball, wear you down. I remember back in like the Kirk Cousins days, and, they had efficient passing game. And it's just Peyton Thorne, 2,450 yards on the season. That's not bad. 18 touchdowns, the 10 interceptions is what's really killer. His numbers are pretty close to Sean Clifford, who has 2,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, same as Peyton Thorne, but only 7 interceptions. Cut that back some this year. Obviously, he's thrown it more too. He's thrown it about 30 more times than Sean Clifford. But Penn State's going to run the ball on Michigan State, who allows 180 rushing yards per game on defense. So that defensive line, that front seven, and it kind of just opens up the backfield or the secondary for Sean Clifford. When you're setting up the run, that's when you see the Parker Washington, slants where he takes it 25, 30 yards when he catches it for about like 8 or 10 yards. But he has that yak ability. that I think is going to transition well in the NFL. But then also Mitch Tinsley, he has that physical, contested catches, whether it's, he's close up on his DB or whatever. So it kind of opens up that secondary, and same with across the middle for those two tight ends, like I said, that he loves. And even Tyler Warren opens some things up, some delayed routes, looks like he's blocking in the backfield, and then he just cuts up for a little out route or whatever. So I think Penn State is going to really come at this game similar to what they did with Indiana. I think they are really going to run the ball and set up plays, whether it's like these short passes, these short screens, towards kind of like a run game too. I'm a Washington Commanders fan. They kind of did the same thing when they didn't have a run game. These short throws, these drop-offs, these like some screens, but then also just getting the ball in your running back's hands, however. But I think they really want to just run the ball down Michigan State's throats, because you look at that 180 rushing yards allowed per game. That is not good. They allow 236 passing yards as well. Not terrible for, in the Big Ten. There's not that many quarterbacks and, wide receivers that you really have to worry about outside of like Maryland, Purdue, Ohio State, obviously, some of those big teams. But when you really look at the history of this game, though, it's kind of like maybe this is a trap game. I hate to say it, but I don't think it will be. But you just have to look at how the history has been throughout the last few years, because the Spartans have won 6 of the last 9 games in this series, including 3 of their last 5 at Penn State. I think it's been, different Michigan State teams in the past. Like I talked about how much they're going through differently. But you look at a guy like Cal Holiday at linebacker for Michigan State. He's averaging 9.9 tackles per game, which is tied for the most in the Big Ten. And he had 19 tackles over Rutgers. In that win over Rutgers earlier in the month. 19 tackles. That was a guy I knew before the season even started with Cal Holiday, and how they do have a good defense. It's just sometimes they just aren't clicking together. Like I said, they've been out guys like Snow, Henderson. It's just when you miss key guys like that, your whole unit really just goes down. Michigan State does lead the series 18-17. But right now, Penn State, if you're a betting person looking at the line, it's at 19. It was at 18.5. That 19 is like, ugh. They got Penn State as a minus 1,100 money line, and the over-under at 53. So Vegas loves Penn State. They love this matchup. And the over-under 53. Because me, when I'm really looking at this game, I could see it being a 41-17 kind of game. I just don't think Michigan State's offense is going to be enough to be able to keep up with the running game of Penn State. But then also, like I said, I think Sean Clifford's going to open it up. He knows it's his last game at Beaver Stadium. He wants to put on a show. That's fine. And I think that run game is really going to help out with it. Because for Berger, for Michigan State, he's been a solid back. 669 yards, 6 touchdowns, good numbers on 141 carries. It's not Kenneth Walker numbers, of course. No one's going to do that. But I just think what Michigan State wants to do, they're not going to be able to do against Penn State because of that defensive front. And Peyton Thorne's going to have to run from his life from guys like Adisa Isaac, PJ Mustapher in the middle. Chop Robinson, obviously. You've got guys like Abdul Carter, who's been balling out lately. They're going to shut down the run game. The running defense outside of that Michigan game has been dominant. I was at that Maryland game and seeing what they did to Roman Hemby and Talia Tagovailoa, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is actual domination before my eyes. I thought it was going to be a good game. I thought it was genuinely going to be closer than what it was. And they made me look silly, and that's fine. I appreciate those games. I had high expectations for this defense, but you also have to, come into account of how many young guys are on this defense, especially like outside at corner, Kalen King, Kobe King linebacker. You got all these young guys, Abdul Carter, Curtis Jacobs is that vet in the linebacker spot, but you have young guys that are contributing and that are starters that you are relying heavy on. And the fact that they've really come through this season, I've already praised Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen as, what they're doing as freshmen. They literally just graduated high school. It just blows my mind to see what they do on the football field against these really good, talented players in the Big Ten. And the way that this defense just balls out, their mentality, what Manny Diaz has done, he took what you saw from Penn State's defense in the past and also added his little personal mix to it. And I think it just meshes together so well. I was so interested to see how this defense would look, and it's the first season under Manny Diaz. And of course, he's taking over, he's the linebacker coach too. So I wanted to see what he was going to do. And he does a really good job of rotating his linebackers in. As much as we want to see Abdul Carter on the field all the time, there's times where he puts in, Tyler Elsdon and rotates these guys in to get fresh legs, but also, they're still learning. Like I said, Abdul Carter is still very young, and he's going to be a great linebacker. They're already comparing him to Micah Parsons, and I'm not mad at it. Like, the way I see this guy playing, he has the potential to be that good. So I think Manny Diaz is going to attack this. Don't know if Joey Porter Jr. is going to be back. Coach Franklin said that him and Olu would be back this season. This is the last game, unless they anticipating on playing in the bowl game. Which I think Joey Porter Jr. is going to the draft. He absolutely should. I think he's a top 15 pick, like lock. They have him projected at like 9 on ESPN. So I don't think he's coming back. I think Olu is coming back. Still super young, only 19 years old. He is projected first round, top 20 pick. I would say maybe a little bit outside of that. But the feeling I'm getting is that he is going to come back for another season. So we'll see. Maybe he would play in the bowl game. Obviously, you have this generation of not playing in the bowl games if you're going to be a draft pick. Doesn't matter what round you are, honestly. So I'm interested to see that too. I want to see, who ends up playing in this game. That Olu, Joey Porter Jr. kind of bubble. I would have said Parker Washington too if he was playing, but like I said, he's out for the season. So, but it's interesting to see moving forward also in the bowl game who actually plays. But for this one, like I said, I think it's going to be like 41, 42 to 17, maybe 20, 21 for Michigan State. I think Penn State wins this one. I just think they run the ball down their throat, just dominate controlling the game. I think defense comes up big. I'm going to say Abdul Carter forces a fumble. And I'm going to say Jair Brown gets an interception. I really, really want to see what Jaden Reed looks like against this Penn State defense. Like I said, Peyton Thorne's so good sometimes, but then he just throws these boneheaded plays sometimes too. So we'll have to see what Peyton Thorne shows up for Michigan State and what they get out of these young guys like Coleman at wide receiver, and then Reed, of course, in his final regular season game. So it's going to be – it has a potential to be a good one, but I don't think it will be. I'm leaning towards Vegas, that minus 19 spread. Like I said, just don't know what Michigan State's going to be like. Yes, it's a big game. Yes, they need this to be bowl eligible, but then you have the 7 players getting charged with the tunnel incident yesterday. There's just so much going on. People are already mad at Mel Tucker talking about a buyout and stuff. It's just ugly. But if you look at their losses, you're like, okay, they lost to Ohio State and Minnesota, Michigan. They lost these big, tough games, obviously. So you're not too surprised. Maryland, Ohio State, Minnesota, Washington. But I would say Penn State is in that same category as the Washington, obviously Minnesota, Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan tier of a team. So I got Penn State winning this one. Let me know what you think. Drop your predictions in the comments. Like I said, once again, appreciate everyone who tunes in and watches these videos. Then also checks out our website, subscribe to Penn State Rivals, and just reads our content, watches our content, listens to our content, whatever. We appreciate y'all, especially, like I said, as much as y'all support. Follow us on Twitter at Penn State Rivals for some awesome content, keeping up with recruiting. Every single game we have updates. And I'll actually be watching this game Saturday. I'm off, so that's awesome. I'll be going live, actually. So subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button. I'll go live after the game, probably right afterwards, honestly. So as soon as the game ends, hop over here on YouTube, get in the channel. Let's talk about this game, what was good, what was bad, the results, and then, of course, talk a little bit of, looking at the future, seeing maybe Penn State does make that New Year's Six Bowl. I would love that. I'm absolutely going to that game if they do. So appreciate y'all tuning in. Enjoy your Thanksgiving weekend. There's football on every single day, and I love it because you're going to blink and football season is going to be over, and it's pretty depressing. But appreciate y'all. Have a good weekend. Enjoy watching the game, and I will see y'all Saturday night after the game. Peace.